Hello, welcome everybody. I hope you're enjoying the talks you've been at so far. So we have here Riccardo Magliocchetti, and he's going to talk about TFW, Your Country Funds Open Source Development. Let's give him a round of applause, please.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here. So my name is Riccardo Magliocchetti, and today I'd like to talk to you about the feeling when your country funds open source development. So a bit about myself. I'm a Pythonist, of course, a software developer and consultant from Italy. And in my free time, I'm an open source software contributor. Most of my time spent on free software. I contribute to the MicroWhiskey or UWSGI project. And so what I'd like to talk to you about today. So last year, I consulted for the Italian digital transformation team, which is a unit of the Italian government tasked with making public services more accessible to businesses and citizens. So it's like a unit of the government tasked with fixing the Italian public administration digital culture, which is more or less like the government digital service you have here, but possibly with a lot less budget. So I worked on the Docs Italia team with these people. You may recognize maybe Jacopo, which is a Django CMS contributor. Maybe someone else, someone like Francesco working in London, so maybe you met him. And with these people, we built Docs Italia, which is a platform to host and share documentation made by the public administration. So public administration, like the state, but municipalities, regions, can upload their documents so they can share with the public. So Python, of course, it's a project written in Python. So a Python platform to host documentation, you may recognize some pattern, and maybe you recognize it because you already use Read the Docs. And in fact, Docs Italia is a fork of Read the Docs. Read the Docs, I think every one of you know it, but anyway, it's the leading documentation platform for Python projects. So most of the time you read documentation for Python libraries, you possibly are reading them on Read the Docs. So we actually forked Read the Docs, and I mean that in the fork as in old school way, like it's not just pressing GitHub fork button, but to set Wikipedia, we forked Read the Docs as we are creating a distinct software. Like we of course press the fork button on GitHub, but we renamed our new repository, and we kind of created a different developer community as we are like a regional project, like for Italy. Our community speaks mostly Italian. So we like different rules, different issues, and different documentation in another language. And if you are old enough to remember old times, like forking project was quite not the right thing to do. Still, so why a fork, actually? So we have to fork, and we cannot just use, install our instance of Read the Docs because we have a very specific target. We accept contribution only from public administration people, so just a random citizen cannot upload the document. And we created a quite different onboarding process to check that. And we created a metadata system to make this contribution from public administration people like easier. So we created a YAML format to add to our repository so our machinery can see documentation and people don't have to upload them manually. So in this work, fortunately, we managed to contribute quite a bit stuff upstream. And we did 33 pull requests, and 22 got merged, and 11 closed, possibly not very good ideas. On these 22 pull requests merged, 10 were bug fixes, which were fixes to like stack traces we got on our center instance. And 6 were internationalization improvement. We, of course, contributed a full Italian translation, but we fixed the tooling used by Read the Docs to upload and manage translations. And doing that, we found some strings were not marked for translation. And 6 were just code cleanup, so nothing interesting. So I managed to contribute a regression to Read the Docs, and I removed the schema from a URL from a template. And this change broke some JavaScript. And the fun thing is the change was not needed, and it was a wrong configuration from our side. So we contributed not only changes to the Read Docs code base, but we contributed a full Ansible deployment automation. And Read the Docs is quite a complex project. You have web workers, you have salary workers to build the actual documentation. You have Elasticsearch cluster for doing the search. And of course, you have an Nginx front end. So it's like usually a multi-machine setup. And so having it automated is way better than following instruction on wiki, I guess. And we managed to contribute 0 new features. And if any of you maintain an open source project, I think this is appreciated, as we haven't asked the Read the Docs developers to maintain our code, essentially. Well, we tried to contribute a feature. At the time, Read the Docs was using a very old Elasticsearch version for the search feature. And it was like a 1.3 Elasticsearch, so it was quite kind of old. And there was a pull request unfinished to port it to Elasticsearch 5. And we tried to update this pull request to add support for Elasticsearch 5.6. But nobody in the team was very, nobody mastered Elasticsearch, so it took a while. We made mistakes, and our code was not that great. So by the time we were confident with our code, Google Summer of Code's student started from scratch to support Elasticsearch 6, which was the latest release at the time. And so we dropped our effort, and fortunately, it took quite a bit to the student too, but last January, Read the Docs was using this new Elasticsearch 6 code. So during this process, 6 months of work, for me at least, some lessons were learned, I think. First one, it's important to build trust with upstream, as try to be part of a community, as in contribute fixes, comments, help the people. Because one day you'll need help from the developers, and it's a lot better to be recognized instead of being a nobody. Second thing I learned is a fork is nothing more than a long-lived branch. And if you maintain some code, you may know that maintaining a long-lived branch is kind of painful because you have to keep up to date when the code you forked, the other branch is updated. And so the better to fix upstream instead of carrying patches downstream. And another thing I learned, but I know it already, like contributing to open source software is just part of the job. These days, it's quite rare, but you'll have a software project without reusing open source software. So if this software is part of your stack, you have to contribute, as the software won't write itself. And then last lesson is convenience is a lot more important than purity when maintaining a fork. So you have to sacrifice the better design for the convenient one. And for example, read the docs is a Django application. So instead of modifying the original code, we created a new Django reusable application. So we can add our code there. And to be more precise, for example, we had to add, of course, some models, so some database table. And the decision was to create another model instead of changing the original one, because otherwise we had to maintain and handle conflicts on database model, which, of course, it's not something you want to do. And thankfully, the read the docs code base provides quite a lot of configuration, like not just knobs for settings, but there's a lot of entry point to override the class to use for an implementation just by specifying their path. So a lot less code to change and fork. Last lesson actually is when you have to sync with upstream, so you have to merge back the changes as the upstream continues development. You have two choices usually. The one is to merge changes on your branch, and the other one is to rebase your changes on top of upstream. And my opinion is that rebase always better, as maybe it's more painful the first time, and you possibly have to manage conflict in a big way, and when you rebase. But still, your history will be a lot cleaner, and having a cleaner history will be better not only for you to handle your commit and see what's exactly different, but also it's easier if you want to contribute to cherry pick commits because we are atomic, as the conflicts are already resolved in the same commit, so you have less work to do. And still, it possibly easier also for a team to see what you've changed, and if they find something interesting, they can cherry pick. So to conclude, not all project forks are bad, and ours isn't bad, not just because we made it open source, but because we contributed back to the upstream community some code, some fixes. And like the important thing is, like, when you make something open source, good chances that it's not really helpful for other people. And so the important thing is to serve the bigger community, in this case the Read the Docs one. And also another thing I want to point out is you still can deliver value while contributed to open source. Like I'm telling you about a project run by Italian public administration, which is not exactly an elite example of working, so a working habit or so. And so I think if we managed to deliver value while contributing to open source during a public administration project, I think you can do the same from your company's company project, private project, whatever. So this is all I got. Thank you. You can find my contacts and also references to the Italian government GitHub account on GitHub, mine, the speaker deck where I leave my slides, my Twitter handle, my site, and thank you.
So we have time for questions. Does anybody want to ask a question, please? We're there.
Thank you very much for the talk. Well, this is probably a question that will spark a whole new talk, but could you give more detail about how did the project start? Like, did the Italian public administration select what language or what technology you had to use, or they assembled a team of people and then you had like more freedom to choose? Like, how is this working out? Are the users like actually submitting documents to the system?
Okay. So the decision to use ReadDocs was already made because the unit, the Italian digital transformation team, was at the time like I think 20 people, and we were mostly technologists. So some people were Pythonistas, so of course they already knew ReadDocs, and so it was like a kind of natural solution for our problem. And the need for a platform for documentation, I have to say I don't know where it came from, but the thing was that we wanted a platform where we can see the difference between documents and where we can search the documents and where we can discuss the documents. So there is an integration like a Sphinx plugin to integrate the rendered documents with a discourse forum. So the idea was that you can discuss the specific like regulation or laws, whatever, on the forum. And you can see what was people discussing on the rendered documents.
Okay, thank you. Anybody has other question? Yeah, there.
Hi. A very informative talk. What I wanted to ask was, what you thought was the difference in funding levels as a factor between, let's say, gov.uk and Docs Italia?
Sorry, but my understanding of British English.
You said the funding levels between gov.uk and Docs Italia were quite different.
Oh.
Can you give me a scale or a number?
Oh, no, it was mostly a joke. But no, like, again, at the time, the digital transformation team was like 20 people. And I think the digital government digital service like a lot more, like 100, I think, at least. So I think it's kind of that kind of scale. Like I think the budget for the Italian was like a couple of millions a year, which I think is not that great. But I don't have details on budgeting.
Well, 20 to 100 developers is a lot of money and a lot of resources. So yeah, I guess it gives a bit of the scale. Do we have any other question? Whoa, they're turning me around.
Thank you for the talk. So my question isn't really about ReadDocs. It's more of a, well, I guess, organizational question. So all of the government documents that are posted on Docs Italia, I guess that they're versioned through some sort of system, right? Is every single revision of a given document available to the public? And if so, can members of the public choose to edit these documents? or propose new changes to these documents?
Okay, well, Docs Italia ideally will contain all the public administration documents, but at the moment, not many administration have started to contribute documents there. And the publisher can decide to make some revision public or not. So the workflow usually is they publish and revise the document in private mode. And when they are they're fine with the document, they make it public. And the same for revision. So they probably work and then publish a new release when they are fine. But the documents we added to the platform are public, taken from GitHub. So everything should be public. I mean, not like built and rendered, but the source code are always public. Regarding taking into account making edit possible from other people, I think it depends, but most of the documents I think are like laws and regulations. So I think they want to have comments on the forum, but not like people editing the documents themselves.
Okay, thank you. I saw before another question. Yeah.
Hey, hi. Thanks for the talk. I just had a question regarding, you said the fork, and then most of the new branch is in Italian language, and it's differently organized. And I just was wondering how that impacted the support of the user community in Italy, like, having a different language and, the local language, if there was any impact in terms of people providing more support or anything like that.
Our users at the time were just like power users. So was people like very interested in the project. And so usually they were kind of skilled. So the platform itself didn't have much support issues. But still, the problem is like convincing administration to spend time on writing their documents. So a lot of time was spent like creating Pandoc plugins to convert documents in ODT or doc format in restated text. So most of the work was done ahead of publishing on the platform. So I think most of the work for support is like how should I write my documents to be on the platform. But I worked only on the Python side, so I can't have details on that. But I think for us it was like no support issues from our users.
Yeah. So we have now run out of time. So if you have any more questions or anything, I guess he will be around.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Personally, I have done a fork, and yeah, I know what you're talking about. So I think this is very useful advice that you gave. So thank you so much for your talk.
Thank you.